In 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. As you can see if you're watching live, as you can tell if you're looking at the show notes, listening to us now on the podcast form, we are joined by the governor, the mayor, the king of DJ Nation.
Keep talking, Joey baby.
I can't really, live from the newest state to join the legal gaming space, Michigan. How are you doing tonight, Joey? I hope this week is going as well for you as it is for the rest of us.
Pure Michigan, baby. Great to be here. Great to be out. It's been a minute. I think since last NFL draft, since we chat. I mean, we're always conversing on Twitter, but it is great. I tell you what, I could get one pleasantry out of the way before we start arguing about props. It is great to see some of the come up and the success that you guys have had with this podcast and it taking off and all the sponsorship and stuff. So it's, some real from a real OGs that were around for a while from back in the day when they were, you guys had 50 listeners to now is pretty cool to see for sure. So I've enjoyed it as an avid listener and as a participant. So that's awesome. And hey, what do we got here? We got the buffet of props fiesta here with the Super Bowl week.
Yeah,
it used to be amazing. Like 5 years ago, when you would you dive in and be like, man, there's like 100 props for the big game. This now, literally, like, if I had to, I don't even think I could do it in a full day. Like if I went through every out I had, every out I could find someone to let me in, and every skin, every offshore, every legal book, and started writing them down, and even knocking out the doubles, thousands. Like there's just thousands.
Insane.
It has gotten almost out of control, but that's what we like about stuff like this, because, and especially a guy like you, who's just scrapping for any edge. There's no way they're going to price 1,000 things right.
No, for sure.
That's the beauty of this.
And not even priced right, just the variations. Because, as you guys know, there's no real like Don Best screen for prop. There's no real. I mean, a couple of places have put out like prop, but when you're talking about 1,000 prop, I mean, you go to any FanDuel, DraftKings, they got legitimately like 500 plus different offerings up, and they're not staying on top of all the different stuff. Or if I'm 40 yards, what are they? If they're 40 or 50 yards off, we'll get into some of them that were off. Will Hill. What are they? They're not focusing on what Will Hill has. They'll let the people just bet into it. So, yeah, it is definitely a week if you're willing. But, dude, as you said, it is time consuming. It is labor. It is a lot, especially if you're using legals, offshores, and different places, and different states. This is what I've learned. Different states, even at some of the same operators, have either different lines or different offerings. So it's a wild time. It is a wild time in the Super Bowl prop market.
This is the end of the year bonus though for everyone who really grinds, and this is the including the bookmakers. This is just a big giant end of the year bonus, and we ride off into the sunset. Enjoy our reprieve from the grind of the NFL. This is you're correct. There are more options than ever. And in fact, just a couple basic ground rules, since this is a prop focused podcast. Rule number 1: shop around. You will find added value. You will find arbitrage opportunities if you are just diligent. Sure. You will find them if you are diligent, right?
Even if you're not that diligent, even if
you will trip and fall into some arbitrage.
If you have two books, you will probably find some middles.
Yes, that's right. Rule number 1 to shop around. Don't limit yourself to just one out, because there's just a multitude of options. I'd say rule number 2, I think it's pretty important not to kind of bet based on a specific game state that you think is going to happen. You might as well just bet the side or total if you're so sure. I mean, there are a lot of times that I can think of as I was a recreational player where I was like, yeah, well, I like the Patriots, and I think Tom Brady's going to do this in this game, and I think he's going to target these guys, and I think they're going to have success. And it's all about Gronk, and this matchup is good. And next thing you know, like you have 10 correlated plays, all of them are juiced to oblivion. You paid the juice 10 times for the same bet. Like, don't do that. So don't bet.
Yeah, you found a stupid way to bet, like Tampa team total over. Instead of betting Tampa team total over, you just bet every receiver over, and you paid minus 140. Yeah, fun.
Right. So I think that's an important rule. I guess the last kind of key thing that I think of when it comes to betting these props is if you're there's sort of a drive, a pull where you're like, well, there's only one game. Like, I want lots of action, right? And for me personally, I always go through this every year with the Super Bowl, where I only ever really handicap the side and the total on any given NFL game on any given Sunday. That is where I'm skilled. That is where I have my models tuned to. And now, thinking that I'm just going to wade into this player prop pool that is full of sharks and not get my legs bitten off is stupid, right? And I guess specifically kind of in that, in that vein, we'd like to get your thoughts today a little bit on sort of what the sort of the shark pool is like these days in the player prop markets, like how that process works. If those, folks are firing away on Super Bowl props and, are these sharp numbers? Are these, relatively robust, mature markets? But even before kind of getting there, do you have a specific kind of point of view on how this game is going to go?
I would say in terms of gameplay, I normally you get in any type of Super Bowl, the Rams-Pats one comes to mind from a few years ago where like every prop went under and it was like printing money in this. I would say normally you get a case where, people like over some of the player prop numbers, they're not going to be wildly off, but they might be a touch inflated, but it's not a game that I'm not going to go into this game comfortably playing like every player prop under and feeling like I would be in a great like plus EV situation. Whereas most Super Bowls, I think you could blindly bet every player prop under in a Super Bowl and usually be fine. This is not one that I'm going to walk into and A, do that, and B, would feel comfortable as that would be as normally as much as there would be. Because I mean, would like 40-35 surprise you that much in terms of it wouldn't at all.
I think we've seen that twice between Brady and Mahomes, right?
Right. So like if I'm gonna get a game where I could see like 1,000 yards of potential offense, it's definitely cautioned me from blanket betting a lot of player unders, which I normally would have had zero probably doing. That's probably the one game state I would say I'm would be most worried about from definitely playing a bunch. I do have a Chiefs money line bet. It's not extremely sizable compared to the rest of it. I think the Buccaneers had some fortune. I don't get too much into the games. I think they had a very welcome pathway to the Super Bowl. And just Casey's a slightly better team. Not saying the line is wildly off or anything, but didn't play a total. Just played a Chiefs side. And more so from a game state standpoint, just would be worried about the massive shootout if I was playing, from a normal standpoint of what I usually do on the player prop market stuff. That would be my biggest concern when I'm laying stuff out there, and something that I'm keeping in the back of my mind when I'm going through all the numbers.
Yeah.
And to Drew's point there about the sharks, and not to I hate to flatter you too much because I
was going to say it's a great start here.
No good can come of that. One of our humblest guests, like people like you, or groups like you, or people that work with groups that you and people like you work with, do player props all year. player props are a good way if you have outs, if you're not getting limited, it's a good way to attack markets. You see a ton of this action in every sport. Maybe I've never really seen hockey player props get smashed, but maybe limits suck on that. But even NBA, baseball, like especially college and NFL, you see these props in accounts all the time. And that, I think that's the biggest part, my biggest takeaway when I started digging into this. I'm like, maybe I'll put together some numbers on everybody. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? It's I have like a week, and these people, I mean, they've built models out. They have projections for everybody. They've been doing it for years. I'm like, what am I going to do and put something together that's going to be able to attack this market with any semblance? Like, not to discourage people from trying, because I always will encourage people from trying. But these player props, the numbers on some of the individual players, whether it's yardage, catches, stuff like that, those are tough to beat. And you see people beating them, but those are tough markets when you have people that are playing them all year. Maybe it's some of the other stuff, some of the things where you can actually go out and do some easy math on and take some swings might be better. And that's kind of where I ended up. I used to I would wait. I said this off air. I wait until somebody finds out what the anthem practice is. Then I bet the anthem over for as much as I can, or under, or whatever. Then I find out who knows what the Puppy Bowl score is. I bet the shit out of the Puppy Bowl anywhere that'll let me. And then I figure out how much I'm going to win from those two. And I bet like half of it on other bullshit that I have no chance at probably breaking even on. So I feel good about, as soon as the Puppy Bowl and the anthem, those are over by the time we're kicked, I've made some money, and I don't feel bad about losing on those props.
When I say, to follow, just to kind of clean that point, for a second, the player props in terms of like all of are probably the hardest of the prop offer. Like, if you're going to go into this without any background, you don't really want to touch them, because you've got 19 games here of run for these guys for the most part, that the number's not going to be wildly off either way, and it's going to be reasonably efficient, and you're getting a couple hundred other props that are offered in no game, like in this season, like individual yes/no sack props, shortest punt like from individual punters, like a bunch of stuff that is never offered for like any game, even a couple of rare primetime games. You just, the novelty stuff and the commercial stuff and the stuff you mentioned, and some of the unique game props, you shouldn't be touching the player prop. Like really, there's not a great, reason, unless you're like, I've done some player prop middles so far, but I don't have any major positions on player props one way or the other so far. And I'm laying out a ton of stuff on props, but it's just, that's not the main way to attack this. If you're not, even if we like you said, we bet a shitload on props every single week, and we really haven't done much with the player props so far in this game outside of playing some middle action.
No, and to piggyback on what Andy said, absolutely try this. If you spend 30 minutes on one specific player prop, come up with a very focused and thoughtful way to attack it, and go through that process and come up with exactly the market price, that's valuable experience in and of itself, because at least now you've kind of thought through, where am I going to get this data? What am I going to do with it? Like, how do I want to attack this? If you're getting the same number as the market is telling you, then you're at least onto something. And you can try that across a bunch of different sports. I guess just in general, over the course of a given season, what percent of the action that you guys are getting down is player props relative to sides and totals?
It would definitely, as far as, one, my personal action, and B, like the stuff that's going to the accounts and the groups and stuff, it's definitely going to be, I'd lead more 70-30 for getting down the price, as opposed to sides and total. A lot is also like on a college football, as far as liquidity for sides and totals, I'm going to attack, the early stuff that's that we're betting in the casinos, and then I'm betting in some personal and betting in some offshore, as opposed to stuff that we're betting in the credit accounts, which is more going to be on a prop base, because that's where you need the liquidity for all the PPH accounts, to be able to get, bet 50 different, Tyreek Hill unders in a certain week, not this week, but in a certain week of, to get it into a bunch of different accounts. So it's more of a spread thing, as far as where would you need the liquidity and what kind of market shape you're going to get. So if you got PPH stuff, especially like when we're talking they're not gonna, they're not posting the college football openers or any of that stuff or any of that, or even they're kind of waiting until it gets shaped a little bit, and then you're fighting a lot of the big groups there on the Mondays and the Tuesdays. So it's definitely player prop heavy, but that doesn't mean you can't have at least some side and total stuff in there, especially from a longevity perspective.
Can you explain that point a little bit to the audience, just in case people don't understand what that means?
Yeah, no,
longevity part.
If you've got any type of, whether it's offshore or credit account that you want, especially, and I would talk the legal books even more so than offshore now. If you're only betting player props, the chances that you get limited sooner than later is, I would say, quite high. So whether it be, one tactic that I've used for some accounts has been like Sunday morning, I'll go in and bet every NFL side in total for, whatever, 25 or 50, but or whatever, a 1/4 of a unit or something, or, do a couple of NFL parlays in there. Yep. Just, maybe hit the blackjack for $1 a hand every, once a week for a session there, just to make sure that if your account is, if you're beating props and that's all it takes one person in risk management or one agent that has a clue to look at your account and know if you're sharp or not. So, yeah. That's been some of the challenge you'll run into when you're running the prop game at scale.
Yeah, when your buddy vouches for you and gets you a credit account, and your buddy and everybody he vouched for is just hammering NFL and playing parlays, and then all of a sudden you're in there betting horse matchups at like 10 in the morning on a Tuesday for the
that are shockingly hitting 70% every week.
It doesn't take a very smart, and when he says agent, a person on the other end of it, it doesn't take someone real smart to figure out like, oh, I don't want this guy. Like, this is no fun.
Yeah.
I want more people playing these NFL parlays.
Are you getting a sense that the other side of the counter is getting a little more sophisticated, or have they leaned more into just algorithmic identification of this sort of stuff?
I got to differentiate between the two. I would say the technology at the legal shops is far more sophisticated than not only the KYC technology, the know your customer, to be able to identify sharp action, but also the geolocation stuff and the ability to multi-account, which offshore is extremely easy and relatively easy to beard in. Where legalized, it is not. The PPH stuff is always going to be a little bit. The business model in itself doesn't lend itself to as strict of risk management, if you know how that world works, of where the back ends are getting paid per customer, not per. Yeah. So that's a little bit more of a gray area, but it's always, you got to adapt or die, and there'll always be different challenges, different ways around things. One of our most profitable skins at the beginning of 2020 was metallic, and at the end of 2020 and now in 2021. It would almost be dried up based on some changes that they made across the skin in terms of how they do their props when they open stuff, limiting that. They took a very, very strong stance against anyone with the clue there. So, but you gotta adapt to other stuff. It's always going to be a changing mechanism. So.
It's a game. You got to stay one step ahead.
Yeah. It really is. And so, but that's where the knowledge of what can you get away with offshore, what can I get away with legally, what can I get away with in the credit market are three very different pieces of information and kind of ecosystems that you need to maneuver through.
Gotcha.
This feels like a little bit of a different game just because it's the fucking Super Bowl.
I was just going there. Great call.
As far as like, I feel like, especially if you went to one of these legal states and were betting over the counter for, reasonable, but not small amounts. I think you could get away with it here, but
no doubt.
Like, during, and Alex says you got to play online roulette for an hour a week. I know someone else, like a Canadian bettor who was doing that. He was playing like slots, and I mean, he's very anti playing games like that, but he's like, it kept accounts open. I just sit there and play slots and try not to lose too much. I think it was more time than money as far as what they track. So
got to bleed them out.
In the Super Bowl, I think you can probably get away with it a little more. just because the whole world's betting all these props. If they're going to put them up, they're not going to. The limits aren't super nuts on any of these, so they're not too worried about one particular prop getting like, oh man, they're not sitting there with the amount they take on the side and total and how they do just in general because it's the fucking sports book. They're not sitting there, man. We're really sweating the tight end catches today. That's not a thing.
Yeah. I guess. And so, what was your process like this last 2 weeks in the run up to the Super Bowl? Have you been traveling around? You've been trying to hit different states personally? Like, I guess, is it easy enough nowadays to do it all mobily?
So I would say the different parts were one, Michigan just got up and running. So that got me about, 10 outs that were reasonably fresh. And then also having, the family and the friends if they need to get down some more. So that was extremely helpful. Also, working with people that if they have something in Nevada or New Jersey or something that I want a piece of, or Illinois that offer a little bit different market, they've had that aspect of it. So I fortunately haven't. If you're gonna, the travel part of it is, if number one, you're gonna go somewhere where you wanna, like, you have something and you want to get a ton of liquidity down at the counter. That would be the reason to travel, right? Because mobile, you can pretty much get down, especially if you know some people in this different areas and get it. But I know some people that either went into Atlantic City, went into Vegas, just because they know the routine there, they know where they can get enough money down. Colorado was one. I know there's an interesting character online on gambling Twitter that hit up Colorado and was doing some bearding there.
I think he's watching.
Yeah.
He's going to try and buy commercial spots.
I like this. You got to think outside the box.
Yes. And so there's kind of a connect. And now I'm close enough where I can now run, I timed it the other night when I was making a run for my driveway into the parking garage. At one of them, it took like 12 minutes. So that's another great way to, if you want to get more down or kind of stay off the radar, is the apps, especially with legals, are going to smoke you quick. Yeah, extremely quick, especially if you have a clue what you're doing. If you're able to mix some in-person in, I would encourage that as much as you can. Okay. But you gotta know the routine and where to go and who's taking what.
Okay. So what? Stepping back a little bit at the prop menu for this year, have you noticed any kind of new angles of attack? Anything that surprised you in terms of what was offered? From my standpoint, I'm a little surprised at sort of how quiet things are. Usually I catch wind of like a handful of true plus EV stuff that's just real. Real good early in the week that you can get down, maybe even the week before. Haven't really heard a lot of that this year. Nothing that I would consider like the leaked information, the true, this is known, this is as the stuff that you keep all of your accounts live for all year so that when that one comes through that is that good, you can get down as much as possible. Right. I mean, is it felt quiet to you? And what have you thought of the offerings in general?
No, it's not. And, I would say potentially COVID plays a little bit of a factor into that, where I think the production crews are probably lighter. The traveling parties are lighter. The mass crowds around any of the stuff is lighter. So I think that would play a touch into why it's been a little bit more meek as far as some of the early stuff that you may or may not have heard leaking up. There was a little bit of groundswell today and some market movement in terms of the weekend halftime stuff that I originally was starting to hear the early creaks out of. But yeah, the end of the week is really where you kind of look to once things really get hot as far as the known outcome stuff. The other thing is that and this is where offshores have probably been a little bit set, is they've kind of been through this a number of times and know either, ones we talked about pre-show that are taking very, very small limits on some of these things now, or either don't offer them or pull them down early. So your common offshore that I think a lot of your listenership and a lot of people have are definitely savvier than they were even a few years ago of how to approach Super Bowl week. So I think the opportunity is more ripe in different either the legal shops or any other some credit stuff that might be a little stale as opposed to your premium offshores.
Can I
have a chance
Andy,
to
let me
go
ask
to a
you.
legal state. I think that what Joey hit on there,
Yeah.
like that. Like Dave's had enough of your shit. Basically.
Yeah,
I'm just
No,
gonna.
you can have $50. It's basically
Yeah.
it's like a free play bonus. It's like an
Right,
ongoing
right,
bonus
right.
for being a player. Thank you for being a player.
Yes.
We'll
Thank
continue.
you for
Do
playing
not
with
cash
us all.
out. We need
Right.
we need to keep the Bitcoin wallet
Yes,
full.
but
please.
he's not interested in giving you $1,000 anymore.
No, exactly.
He's giving you 10 or 20 or
Yes,
50
that's
maybe.
right. Times are changing.
Yes.
But I mean,
So
that's
why-
a great
wait.
point about the legal operators. They just haven't. I mean, some of these
Yeah,
legal
yeah.
operators have, they've been around. They're working with groups, but some of them that are getting lines, their line suppliers are out of Europe or things
Yeah.
like that. They're not going to be as good at this as some of the offshores have. A decade or two of
Right.
hanging props, and every year hanging more props where they're going to have people actually dedicated to making sure these aren't bad and making sure they have the limits where they want for risk exposure. So if you
Yeah.
live in or near a legal state, like I've just been swamped, but I will be driving down to Iowa and just because I can open up FanDuel, DraftKings, all the WinBet, everything. I can open up all those and look at stuff. I just can't bet them from here. So I'm going to be popping down there, probably doing most of my online or most of my Super Bowl prop stuff at some legal shops, just because they seem to have some dumb stuff.
Oh, for sure. And it is a market share battle. As you said, like the offshore market share battle is
that's been fought and won.
It's over. It's been consolidated in that where the new legal operator battle is up and rising. So they want you to give you we'll give you this risk-free bonus. We'll give you this. We'll let you bet this. We'll give you whatever. I mean, when I was first going downtown, I could get whatever I wanted at the counter. Like, without giving too much away, like, some of the limits that they gave me at the counter on some, we did it with one of your friend of the shows, Plus EV Analytics, with some regular season alt win totals. It was when they were first opened up, and you guys have done great work on that. I walked down there, and they were giving me whatever I would have wanted on those. Same applies here. As you said, if you're in or close, you got to go. If you really want to do it right, you got to go. You can't really do it on, Bookmaker and Bet Online and Bavai. You can bet them, but if you want to do it, you want to do it right. You gotta get into the legal market right now somehow, some way.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you, why?
Especially.
Go ahead. I was just
going to say, if you had $1,000 free bet.
I want the $1,000 risk-free bet I wanted was at a different offshore who was hanging a first song for the halftime show. I wanted that $1,000 risk-free bet, but what, number one, why do you think they were offering $1,000 on that market? Why were they willing to give you $1,000? And was this like a magnet? They were just basically like trying to get it over with like as quickly as possible. They were going to write whatever action they wrote until they finally kind of caught the limit bet come through, or the couple limit bets in a row. Like what was the point of that? And it killed the whole market. Like there's nowhere you can get down on it now. Why did they do that?
I know that was honestly, I was shocked with the number one that they were offering that, and then B. But as you said, especially if you're a known guy there, a couple of limit bets in a row, and it triggers. Like they have an auto shutdown mechanism now on some of their line. They're not we don't got this is really getting into the weeds, but bookmakers not the. They've definitely taken some risk management practices within the last 12 months, especially during Corona, where now limits for every customer aren't the same on everything. Some of their rebets, some of their live stuff has changed. And so now you've noticed that if anybody with a clue hits something, multi-hit something in a row, rebets it, it has like an auto pull-off mechanism where it's high. Yeah, I'm not sure why somebody would maybe just when they want it, I'm gonna go hit this and I'm gonna move it. If they had the information, I'm a little dubious that this early.
I think it was a head fake.
I'm not saying it was a head fake.
That's the way you would do it, though.
That is the way you would do it. So we'll see. That the issue is though, you don't know if it's gonna how much populates the rest of the week, right? Like, will it come back at a lot of places, and you'd be seeing it again, in around in different areas. So sometimes some of these places pull and they're like, we're done. So it's one thing if you're faking a college basketball total, they gotta keep it on the board. If you're faking a halftime song, it might be gone and never return.
Yeah, good point. That's a good point. Well, you can still get down $1,000 on the color of the Gatorade, so there's that. You can still get $1,000 on some of this other crazy stuff too. I'm surprised at the high limit specials, so to speak.
Yeah. The gate not the gate. You put me in the Gatorade mood there. Well, it just makes you think about like the summer and what they did with some of the books tightening up some of their risk management, some of their know your customer practices. It does make you wonder if it's like, all right, here's our group of bettors that bet here. We just lost football. We just lost March Madness baseball, the NBA. We lost hockey and everything. And like 90% of the people are just like, well, I'm not betting because there's no sports. And then like the 5-10% of people left are like, we're going to beat Ukrainian table tennis and it's not going to feel good. And then all of a sudden, you might not be losing at volume, but it's like, man, the only people that are left here are good.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, let me give you. I know you guys are doing stuff with WinBet now, and the plan to give we got WinBet here in Michigan. To give it a plug. Maybe not against my best judgment here, but something that'll help the win out is if you're sitting next to your keyboard and screen with the piss jar and maybe looking to chase a few things and a lot of the sharp books are at 10, all I'm saying is there's a good chance the WinBet isn't at 10 yet. And there might be a 9 or an 8.5 at WinBet. So, it's a nice shop here and I like it a lot. I'm glad they came to Michigan.
I like it. That's a great endorsement. Ringing endorsement.
Are you have full
Player
mobile?
friendly.
Everything's full mobile. You can just
everything full mobile. Yep. Don't have to go. That's the trouble because like Michigan, a lot of the places partnered with these tribal casinos, which are like throughout that. Like if I wanted to go in person to WinBet, it would be. I think I could fly to New Jersey quicker than I could drive to WinBet here in Michigan because it's in like the fucking boonies up there in the UP or something. That's which we're trying. So,
well, if they're full mobile, you don't really need the piss jar, though, right? I mean,
you don't. Hey, back in the day, they might have, drove and pissed while still looking at the screen. So
that's a good point. All right, well, that was a fun, wide-ranging discussion. Appreciate you kind of shedding some light on like the world of the advantage players and what it's like in the prop game these days in the US. It's always insightful to me. I love these stories. Let's break down a couple of props. Let's do a little bit more process, but rather than like how it's done, like let's talk a little bit about how you come up with a number for a couple of these. I was on the Matchbook show with Rob and Suman this morning, and we got into receiving props, and I was like, I don't know, these all look pretty good. I didn't really run the numbers. I didn't even bother because they all looked pretty tight. And then I was like, I don't know, maybe the Tyreek Hill one is a little inflated high because he's so reliant on not reliant, but he so often catches the home run, 30, 40, 50 yard catch that, maybe his average is a lot higher than his median catch. And if he just happens to have 7 normal as opposed to 6 normal and 1 home run, maybe that number's a little off and maybe there's value to that under. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go through and actually crank this. I'm going to get the data for him this season. I'm going to come up with a real number here and, try to figure out if this is an underplay. And so this was my process. And you guys, while I'm talking, feel free to interrupt if you think like, I don't know if I would have done it that way, or like, yeah, I don't know, that seems fine. Then that's totally welcome. Constructive criticism is welcome because literally I just put 30 minutes into this today, and I've never really built out a robust prop model. First thing I did though is I was curious, like, okay, well, give me every Tyreek Hill target this year, right? Nothing really happened over the course of the season with every game he was available where I felt like you really needed to carefully pick through and say, oh no, I only want the targets from the games where Sammy Watkins was on the field and Kelsey was on the field. I mean, for the most part, in pretty much all of the games this year, Hill was out there. He was getting a normal target share. In fact, his target share was super stable. throughout the entire season. He was getting about 25% of targets for the whole season, pretty much, right? So the first thing I want to know is, okay, give me his entire target library for this season, 140 plays. And I have a target share in mind. I think he's going to get about 25% of the targets because that's what he's gotten in almost every game this season. I'm going to look at the Pat Mahomes pass attempts at market and use that to help me understand a little better, even though I think that market is a little low. I'm seeing like 41.5 on that number. I think it should be closer to 44. We'll just use my number of 44 for this example now.
I like, and I think it's worth hammering a little more. Like, you can just take the stats from the season, but you should also be incorporating, like, when you're looking at the quarterback, look at the market too. Like, that's going to tell you a lot. So,
of course. I think for target share, just 2020 is fair because the 2019 Chiefs were different. 2018 Chiefs were different. I'm going to sticking just to the 2020 target share for that. 44 pass attempts for me from Mahomes is, I think, a fair price. So I'm expecting Tyreek Hill to get 11 targets in this game. Okay, that's a good starting point, right? How much opportunity is he going to have? He's going to get ball thrown his way 11 times. Now, is every target equal? Well, not really. In fact, they use Tyreek Hill very different ways. Sometimes they throw the ball to him within 10 yards. Sometimes it's 50 yards down the field. Obviously, there's a different expectation of how often he's going to catch the 10-yard pass compared to how often he's going to catch the 30-yard pass, right? And so the next thing I wanted to know is, okay, of these 140 targets, how often are they targeting him within 10 yards? The answer is 55% of the time. So 55% of his targets are within 10 yards. How often are they targeting him? 10 to 30 yards. That it happens to be about 33% of the time. And then the other 12% is deeper than 30 yards. So about 12% of his targets are the home run attempt, right? And this is all based on air yards, right? And I got all this from a very, very, very good, useful NFL Fast Star Play Index, web applet. It took me 5 seconds to get an Excel sheet with every single play and all the air yards and the completion yards, all of this for everything that Tyreek Hill did this entire season. So thank you to whoever built that tool. It is freaking awesome. I'll put if you want to know what I'm talking about, just message me. I'll send you the link. Okay, let's say he gets 55% of his targets are within 10 yards. Okay. What's the chance that he catches those? Well, if you look at specifically this 140, data set, it's 80%. Okay. Now, how about the 33% of targets that he gets that are between 10 and 30? Well, the percent completion probability there is 50%. Okay. And then for the 30+ yard attempts, he is catching those 30% of the time. Okay. So I am now fleshed out to he's going to have 4.8 catches within 10 yards, 1.8 between 10 and 30, and then 0.4 higher than 30. Okay, and obviously those aren't real numbers, which doesn't really change much. But if you sum those up, what do you get? I get 7.05 receptions for Tyreek Hill.
Let's round it.
So 7. Yeah. Let's go to Bookmaker and see what they got. They have over 6.5, and it's juiced to -145. So I'm on the right. I'm on the right track. I'm on the right track. Not going to say there's an edge there for now. Okay. Well, when a target air yards 0 to 10 on average, that has turned into a 7-yard gain for Tyreek Hill this year. When his target has been between 10 and 30 yards in the air, it has averaged 25 yards of receiving yards. And then when it's gone 30+ in the air, it's averaging 50 yards per catch. So we convolve all this, and I'm at 99 mean expected yards for Tyreek Hill in this game. And again, Bookmaker's average is 94.5, juice to the over. So again, I'm kind of out of luck here where go spend 30 minutes getting all the data, cranking it, and you come up with a mean that's about on market. Now, once I'm here, are there qualitative parts that I've missed here? Like specifically the matchup, like the fact that Tyreek Hill destroyed these guys when they played in season. Like they could not defend him. In fact, Tampa Bay's pass defense is a little aggressive. They tend to do well defending the short intermediate stuff, but do get beat over the top at a pretty high clip. Like maybe that 30% chance that he catches the deep target they give him is low. Maybe he has a higher probability of catching that. So I guess what do you do with this information now, Andy? Do you go into like a qualitative, place and try to kind of flesh this out a little bit? Or do you think there's no edge, move on?
Yeah, I've moved on. I moved on
Okay.
like 5 minutes ago. Because you're right. It's going to be close, and this is something I guess I kind of want to comment from Joey on. We talked about it a little last week. We said like, hey, there's a game state where Tampa Bay gets out to a lead, no matter how it happens. Let's say there's a fumble down at the goal line, like what happened with Buffalo. Let's say it's similar to last year where the Texans just got lucky, essentially played really well, scripted some great plays, had a good quarterback, ended up 24-0. Like everything for the Chiefs is going to start going over. Their offense is going to have to light it up. That game state is going to force a ton of passing, maybe not the running back stuff, but running back receiving, wide receiver stuff. And we talked about a different kind of game state where Kansas City, you get a long run back, you get a running back touchdown, and just Mahomes isn't forced to do much. Tampa's not playing well. The defensive scheme's working for Kansas City, and it just everything goes under for Kansas City. Like these game states they're just as likely. So a lot of these different ones you can run through. We said look for stuff that's just as likely no matter how the game goes. Don't rely on, well, I need Kansas City to throw the ball a lot for this to happen. That sort of stuff. How much on average they're going to throw the ball is built in, just like you did when you did your little spiel there. So that's where, and it's easy to say, like find stuff that's not game state dependent, right. But I think that's where you have to dig outside of player stuff a lot.
And I would just to add in on the player stuff, my first general assumption going into it is anybody who's been healthy for the entire season and one of the main guys who doesn't have any recent variation, their number is going to be relatively on point, right? Like the Kelce's, the Hills, Mahomes, the Brady, you've got a full season of data. Their number is going to be within a couple of yards everywhere. As you said, when you went through it and broke it down and did the process that you would need to do to find, the correct number, it comes out and it's relatively. So my first assumption is to throw those guys to the side and look right for the players that normally wouldn't be listed because it's the Super Bowl. So you're getting every guy under the sun that's listed, or B, some guys that have recent changes either in usage or injury or variance. And like an example of that would be the Darrell Williams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire carry split. Edwards-Helaire coming off an injury. He got the start last game in the AFC Championship, didn't play particularly well, but got a reasonable amount of the carry load, even though Williams outgained him significantly. What does that look like? That's number one. Number two would be like Sammy Watkins is back. Who does that affect? Does that affect some Brian Pringle numbers that are extremely low? Do I still think is Watkins going to get 100% of the snap usage, or is it more of a split? And do I see value on Watkins unders because they're pricing him, back to what he was when he was getting the full target share? Those are some of the things where that was my first approach, was go to the guys that either normally aren't listed, as like you'll see the Scotty Millers and the Demarcus Robinsons and Le'Veon Bell head prop somewhere, and those guys that in most games in a regular Sunday and NFL Sunday wouldn't have been listed in this type of situation. Or the guys that have had some recent change, either in usage, in injury, something might change from the last few games in the playoffs that I could see an edge on, where the numbers I don't think are going to be substantially correct if I'm doing player props, number one, because I like, as you said, if you're going to go right to Tyreek Hill, like, it's probably going to be right on point. Tyreek, he hasn't missed much time. He's been playing 100%. His number is going to be pretty, like, you could close your eyes if you did these every week and like spit out what you think it's going to be.
So you're only going to find an edge if you have some qualitative angle like what you're bringing up.
For sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And yeah, the lower, I don't want to say lower tier, but the guys, if you don't play player props on a regular basis, you're not going to see the fourth wide receiver having, stuff listed for him like you're going to have in the Super Bowl. You're not having all, there'll be some where it lists multiple running backs if it is a team that runs a lot with both guys. But for the most part, you're not seeing backup running backs carries and things like that. For Christ, you probably find a fullback carries. There's will a defensive or offensive lineman score a touchdown prop?
Sure.
The stuff like that could be, and I mean, just generally those are bad, like to bet the yes on. As much as I don't want you to tell you to you should bet minus 2,000 because it's probably an edge, but there are a lot of those where it's so tempting to bet the yes. One, it's funny, Drew did like a half hour work on Tyreek Hill. I did like 30 seconds of work on one. And somebody showed me one. And I mean, it is a psychological thing to bet the yes, to cheer for the yes, to think, oh, that's common. That'll happen. Oh, that's a huge number on that. And somebody shared one, and it was at Bovada. And it said, will the game land on 3, 7, 10, or 14? And again, this is something I just did a project, and I've kept this up for the most part, but I have a spreadsheet that tells you what all the margins of victories are over the past decade or the past 5 years, whatever you want. And I just added it up. And I mean, I made Drew guess, and I guessed high before I looked and added it. You guessed high. The game's only landed on
wait,
3.
let's get a Jack.
I was going to guess. I would guess 3, 7, 10, or 14.
Yeah.
Yep.
Percentage of the time.
That's your margin. Yep.
Let me say 20%.
Ooh.
I like how
we anchored you by saying we both guessed high.
I said it was higher.
Yeah, we both guessed
did
high.
anchor him a little.
Yeah,
but no, it's 33.
Okay.
Yeah.
And almost half of that is the 3, which is where the game's lined pretty much. So
yep.
3 is like 13.5, 14%, something like that. So, but the price was plus 115, minus 150. So plus 115 implies like what, 55%. The no was minus 150, which if you wanted to say, if they're landing 33%, 67% of the time they're not.
Yeah.
That's minus 200. So like right away, it's like, wow, this is good to minus 200, but it's not going to take any action on that. Everyone's like, oh, those are numbers that happen. Threes and sevens. Like,
well, I guess is that a philosophy we should be talking about? Like, is this like the NFL draft where it's like, why is my net worth not on over 5.5 offensive linemen? I only got to wait 24 hours to catch this, right? Like, who cares if it's minus 1,000 that, two Notre Dame players will go in the first round a couple years ago. That price was good to minus infinity.
Yeah.
And I still didn't get enough down on it. Like, what? I guess what is
just kept moving it instead of taking it off. Like, why are you just hanging minus 3,000?
Do you think there could be an inherent EV in the super juicy numbers across the board for some of these weird ones?
No, I absolutely agree. I think the emotional side of it is if one goes bad on you, is it going to ruin your entire folio, right? Number one, is it going to ruin your entire folio of everything, all the work you put in getting it down? Number two, is it going to ruin your entire night of if you're watching the Super Bowl and a defensive lineman picks off a pass and returns it to the house, and even if you hit 70% of your other stuff, you're in the red for the night because Ndamukong Suh, tried to kill Mahomes and got a pick and took it to the house. So, no, I totally agree with you that there's going to be. I usually don't go too much into especially for Super Bowl, into the no safety, into the no, laying even if there's some edge there. There's so much other opportunity to play stuff that's not at that level of G. If you've got maybe an unlimited bankroll, and there's that kind of, then yes, maybe it lends itself to. Yeah. Then
it's doing well.
Of that stuff.
Not quite enough, but it's there.
It doesn't. The risk opportunity cost is.
Yeah. Okay.
We were live betting like minus 600s pretty regularly during
because they get resolved. They get resolved.
Right, exactly.
Some of them were dumb. Yeah. But like here in this one, like I'm just saying, don't be afraid to lay minus 150 on a no.
For sure.
When the true, basically, it's a higher total game as well, which throws some of the variation out there too. But just in a big sample, that price should be minus 200. Like there is a small edge. If you want to play a few of those, don't be afraid to take some no's because more no's than yeses hit. There's too many yeses out there, and things like that don't happen. But you get that availability bias, like, oh, remember when Peyton Manning, the first snap was a safety, and it just happened in the playoffs this year with Big Ben. They had a snap over their head. You think about that. Well, you don't think about it. Oh man, remember the 4,000 games when that didn't happen?
Yeah. Joey, do you have an opinion on Rob Pizzola's bet of the game?
What was his bet? What is his?
He's on Le'Veon Bell under props. Le'Veon Bell under.
We're calling this the Rob Pizzola prop of the game here.
I guess what? Yeah, there you go. I'm joking around, but he brought that up today. Yeah, we're under 2.5, under 2.5 attempts, under 2.5 yards, or under a half attempt.
No, I agree.
Does he touch the football? In
that's where I don't think he touches the unless there's a maybe he gets. I mean, did like under a half receptions. Was on Bookmaker earlier in the week. I don't see it as a real. Maybe they give him like a series or something, or there's a scenario where he gets in there. It's hard to see without an injury of like. Where is he getting more than one series in this game? Like for any reason, unless somebody gets hurt here. I mean, he's been rough for the last. Yeah, he had about a game or two early onset, and then I think there were some rumors out there too that Kansas City kind of knew it was over for Le'Veon at some point there.
What are rules on that? As far as in like baseball, must start.
Yes,
because he has to be on the active roster.
That's a good point. I was going to ask that about LaShawn McCoy's up there too. LaShawn McCoy under a half carry is minus 270. It might vary from book, is he even going to be active?
Tell me what the rules are.
That is now see that normally that some places even this was if you're in the weeds of the prop market started doing you have to have a target for it to register or they're voiding the bet. So this is, I would say, my general comfortability with the Super Bowl is they're not going to use any of the, harsh grading language on anybody. I think if it's over 0.5 carries for LaShawn McCoy and he doesn't get a carry, they're going to cash you on the under, even if he doesn't get in the game. I would believe so. But like in that scenario now, where you're seeing some places go to different rules there as far as targets are concerned, or they have to play a snap or get a start. But I think for these purposes, for the Super Bowl, for some of the off ones we're talking about, my assumption is they would grade it reasonably fair.
Okay, all right. Well, let's give the people some. They've hung in here, listen to us talk about process.
There's some good questions.
Yeah.
This one cracked me up. They'll be showing everybody. It's not like a normal game where sometimes you come in, the anthem's done, they've done the coin flip. Like they show. I mean, it's a long process of.
Which is one of these two stay in the locker room during the national anthem though? One of the two teams. Somebody was during the championship weekend, but I can't. It's escaping me who it was. Was it the Bills? That's the bugaboo. I think on this one is: do they stay in the locker room for the anthem, or are they out there on the field?
Yeah, no, that it's an interesting point because they actually have to show it. Would the production show a player doing it? Would they want to show somebody doing it?
So probably not.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't hate like a sprinkle because they're actually having to show the anthem. Maybe you've got 100 guys that one of them wants to to go there. It's a good question. I would say it's interesting because it's not a scenario that you're seeing anymore in the NFL, right? They don't show the anthem anymore on a different way. So potentially, maybe if be interested. Then this is another COVID thing where you're not getting as much of the radio row player interviews of normally in years past you'd probably get some people asking this to different guys.
Sure.
And this year, you're not getting that kind of detailed information.
Yeah, I'm not going to bite on the kneel or the fist because the NFL has probably got a handshake, a nod,
don't embarrass us out there, guys.
Yeah, and not with the players, but with the broadcasting team.
Right.
If it's good for you, you're not going to get us involved in a political mess right now. Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
And we should read these because there are, I sometimes forget this is a podcast too. So it was somebody had prices on whether a player would kneel or raise a fist during the anthem. This is just the chat being great and helping this guy, Devs. Devs is a local regular here. So he says 4th down conversion at -110 for either team. And everyone else basically said, like, that's a bad number. You should get that because it's higher everywhere else. And that's really another key. Like, if you shop around and you see, like, everybody's at something and my one book is at this lower number, sometimes those are just worth hitting without even going and doing the math on how often is a 4th down conversion actually converted.
If you want to know if it's a good number, go to Bookmaker, look at what the limit is. If the limit is over $500 and the price is better there, you have a good price in your pocket. In your pocket, you might as well fire away. Okay. Anything else that is kind of in the grab bag of, or related to the game that strikes your fancy, Andy? Anything? Did you see my prop sheet that I sent out? Anything that you felt pretty strongly about one way or the other?
I haven't filled it out yet. No, but I did. So I started looking at props yesterday and today. And after like an hour each time, it's like, I am so sick of reading these. And there was just too many player props and then
you're over it, man. You're ready for the
offseason. When Alex was sending me stuff like that, I'm probably going to play that -150. That actually had some stupid high limit for what it was. But there's more of those. Like, I'm just going to do the math on some of those and just play a bunch of stuff where it's mildly plus EV. And if I play enough of them, more times than not, I'll end up with a couple extra bucks in my pocket and then hope somebody has Puppy Bowl results, man.
Have you played any like real obscure ones? Anything really obscure already in your queue?
The cross sport stuff. And we did.
You've got some?
No,
you did some cross?
No, I'm telling you, no, guys. Like, I'm hitting you with the newspaper. When Joey said, like, hey, there's people like me and people that are betting this all year that have pretty sophisticated numbers, and we know what these prices should be, and you don't, if you haven't been doing it, to assume that you do, the hubris there, you deserve to probably break even at best. But to assume you can do it in multiple sports, that's what else kills me. And what's like, I'm not shaming anyone. I'm shaming myself. These are ones I used to love to play. Waste management, open cross sport stuff, like finishing position versus like somebody's rushing yardage, shit like that.
That one waste management sitting at the top of the bet online has been staring at me all freaking week. More hole-in-ones versus Tom Brady interceptions. I'm like, every time I open it, I look at it, I'm like, man, God, there's going to be some hole-in-ones, They got that one stadium course to get people fired up. I haven't done any of the math, but it's been staring at me.
Hole-in-one, yes, is like -150 just at the tournament. So it's likely-ish, but yeah, that's those cross-sport ones are kind of silly as far as, like, just to think you can handicap some of these player props and then also a random hockey prop as well. Like, good luck. And by the way, just, if you want to do them. They're fun. Like, that's super fun to know. It's almost like and somebody in the chat a couple weeks ago did bring this up, or last week, I believe. They said first half versus second half scoring. Somebody had like second half more points was plus money on one of the books, which is that's not where you open that. You open that at like -120 and you still take money. So if you can get in earlier next year, if you look for that one, because second half more scoring should be priced differently than that for the most part. So keep an eye on stuff like that you can just math out.
Yeah, I had one really fun one that I smashed at Bookmaker that's now out of reach. So apologies for talking about this because I know how annoying that is. But they had the one special, will spread or total be mentioned on the broadcast, and talked to our guy, Will Brinson. And he basically said the executive vice president of the whole process basically was like, we're not going to be the first ones to do this. Let some other broadcasting company do it first. So that was a no. And it was at about -200-ish and smashed that out to like -600. So hopefully Will's correct about that. And the spread is not mentioned, but we will see. How about I guess the other thing that I loved personally, and I'm surprised that this has actually gone, it's come in a little bit. How many times will Belichick be said on the broadcast? Is over 1 is minus 217. How is that not a free roll? They say Belichick literally in the opening monologue. Jim Nantz says Brady's first Super Bowl without Belichick. You know, I mean, they almost certainly say it at least once, and then you just need him to say it one more time. Am I crazy? Am I missing something?
I don't hate it. I agree. I think you at least get one out of it, to hit the old Brady Belichick montage there. It's hard to see it not at least, getting free rolled there on one. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else pop among the interesting ones for you, Andy?
Not really, man. I'm probably going to play some stupid ones and wait for the anthem stuff. Like, I love the anthem stuff. It's the greatest sweat. It's the greatest. The greatest sweat is sitting there at the bar, timing it, and then everyone had like timed it slightly differently, and you argue about it, and then you just wait to log in. And I mean, a couple of those. Who's the
Can you riddle me why it's lower this year? Demi Lovato did it as a solo last year. It's a duet this year.
Yeah, and that's where I'm scared away because the duet threw me. I bet the under on the Pledge of Allegiance during the inauguration.
Sure.
And then this girl comes out and starts doing sign language with it, which slowed her way down. Like I don't know how many times I watched different people do the Pledge of Allegiance. Never got close to that number. She went over by like 3 seconds. Crushed me. Luckily, Biden and Jill kissed, so I cashed on that.
Nice.
Made up for a little bit. But boy, it almost went bad for me in the inauguration. So the fact that they're throwing a duet at me does kind of freak me out. I guess, again, we'll have to wait to see if somebody can find out what's
our expectation of the duet? The two, they sing together the whole time, which means they have to
I'm
be.
thinking
I'm thinking they pass it back and forth.
If they pass it back and forth, that's over city. Because then you got to make your time shine. You know, as opposed to if it's a duet and if they're going together, then there's no freelancing, and I can see it being shorter. So interesting questions here. You got anything for
abnormal for the over my number by using push probabilities in the actual market?
Yeah.
That's what I was doing that on a side spreadsheet. Well, he was talking there, putting it together to get the exact number.
I like my simple math better. And then you don't take into the account the VIG. Like, just assume the VIG's. It's probably like 4.5. It's just standard VIG,
it's
right?
Probably all on the no. Yeah, because that's
it's not equally distributed. It's all in the no.
Yeah. Anything fun you got in the queue that's worth sharing for shits and giggles?
So just to rapid fire some stuff. I think the CEH props are cheap. That'd be the one player I would attack. As far as some of my bigger positions are over on carries at 7.5 ish average price. That's still relatively out there. I think he starts. I think he gets the run. I think if they're winning, he'll hit that carry number. And even if you see somewhat of a split, I think they want to, even though he wasn't right in that championship game, they kept giving him the ball. I think with the 2 weeks off, some of his numbers now, even you've seen some steam down here to where like his rushing number, I've started to see some 29.5 pop. And normally player props are kind of the other way where every guy's getting inflated. I think some of the CEH stuff is cheap, and so carries is one of my bigger positions.
Ooh, I'll tell you, you know what? You know why I like that real quick?
Yeah, hit me.
He's a red zone. He's their red zone guy for carries, and he can't get his ass in the fucking end zone. And so he's gonna get like a bunch of chances every time.
3 carries if he gets in. If he gets
you get 3 carries. Yeah, you're first and goal from the 3. You got 3. You're 3 carries. Yeah, slam, freaking dunk, maybe 4. yeah. So that's a fun one. I like that.
Yeah, anyway. I like one that I've seen some wide disparities is total yardage. That which is normally not a prop offered for most games, but I've seen, and this is like as of earlier today, I've seen some places in the 760s, and I've seen 799 out there, and I've seen some of the sharper places kind of in the middle of that, around 780. So that's one that I took a middle on. One interesting one, shortest, like, because you guys are analytical, that work through it. Shortest punt prop is one of my bigger positions, and it is on the over of 32.5.
Okay.
with the thought process being here as we work through it, because this is one that, again, it not normally offered. You've seen anywhere from 32.5 to 38. So those middles are out there. They're a little juicy now. But thought process being, the punt line is very short. Only around 6.5 is kind of the true line. Both of these teams, history of being aggressive. So you would either need, both punters have a pretty decent average. You would either need a true shank or one of those directional, like we're punting it from the 40 and a guy fair catches it at the 10 for like a 30-yard punt. So I thought it was FanDuel had this over 30. It's a little juicy now, but over 32.5 was one of the bigger positions there. I think 36.5, 38.5 is a much, much better number that obviously the offshores came with, but some of the legals opened up 32.5. If you see anything, I'm good with that, 33.5, 34.5. That is in a game that you don't see a lot of punts. I don't think you're going to see any of the especially from these two coaches in this type of game, any of the we're just going to punt from the opponent's 35 type of deal.
I like that conceptually. That checks out to me.
Pooch punt. It's going to be this, Joey alluded to the blowout or the track mean. It's going to be like 45-38. Chiefs have the lead. They get sacked on third down trying to run the clock out. They're at the 42, and there hasn't been a punt yet.
Dude,
and they end up doing
if Andy Reid has anyone besides Pat Mahomes throw the damn ball, or Pat Mahomes kick the ball, I'm gonna throw something at my son. That is not gonna be.
Yes, that is another one. One I was on last year's one that my partner from Chicago had a large position on was last play of the game to be a QB kneel. And it was the last play where they rolled out and instead of kneeling, just threw a long bomb out of bounds. And he lost a good chunk there. That was another one that was relatively underpriced to start, was the QB kneel one this year. It's been run up some places. But again, that's one that is definitely, I think true price. Some guys have, I know, ran the number. True price is around -250, -275. But again, it's a great way to gut punch the end of the game there. If it's end your night. So I didn't. I have some on that. I didn't go as big.
I mean, the rushing attempts, the rushing yards for Mahomes last year was pretty famously an all-time bad beat.
Oh yeah,
but I forgot about the throwing the ball away at the end too.
Yes.
I mean, there were probably people who had safety no in the Peyton Manning game. First snap of the game, the ball goes over the head. It's safety.
-1,500 gone.
Gone. Okay, well, this was a lot of fun. I don't really have anything else really for the exotics because I haven't heard anything good yet.
Points. Yeah. We had Plus EV run this last year.
Yeah, negative Rob was
negative. The numbers were bad. Like as far as getting one, it's another one of those where plus 240 seems like a lot, but I think when we ran the math, it wasn't very good. And then there was just a big enough vig on it where it's like it's not even really good to bet on the other side.
This is a special year though, because there could be 8 touchdowns and Butker has the yips, so I wouldn't get involved. But negative Rob was saying he likes the no on that. He was laying the juice. For what it's worth.
Maybe I would bet the other side just for fun.
I was gonna say now that you said that, yeah.
I guess. Oh yeah, one prop prediction from you guys, and then we'll wrap. What's the kind of the real popular angle that everybody's saying on all the shows and everybody's tweeting about? Oh, I think this is going to be a blank game, and that for those reasons, go bet that guy's over. Like the real mushed out, the total mushed player prop that is going to emerge this year. You guys got a prediction?
I think Kelsey overs have gotten absolutely smashed to the point of where I'm going to play under at close. Like Sunday night before kickoff, I've seen him get over 100, like his total yardage being over 100 at some spots, and I think I'm going to plug my nose there and probably take the squarest number I can right before kickoff. So that's why, especially coming off the run he's on, for a guy that really is unlikely to make a super explosive, like 30+ yard play. That's a lot of it's a lot of yardage to stomach pregame. But I'll probably if I can get 105.5 or something like that, plug your nose playing under on him.
I like it.
Yeah, you should, when you make a good prop bet under, you should feel very uncomfortable when you place that bet.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, just the way Kelsey's played and some of the games he's had, his shit is getting over. You have seen a ton of that.
Yeah.
Like everybody's, oh man, doesn't matter how good these linebackers are. He's just, and how they play their defense, how they will force these linebackers into coverage a lot. He could eat, and he will eat. This is not going to be like, oh, he had one target for 6 carries and we cashed. It's be like, he got tackled a couple times before he broke one, and he ended up with 85.
Right.
It's going to be butt clenching.
What's your prediction, Andy? I was
going to say the same damn one.
Oh, you're on Kelsey too. Okay.
Kelsey stuff is getting super mushed.
I've heard a lot of people making cases for playoff Lenny here, right? And Leonard Fournette, he's a huge part of the passing game, leading all these targets. Just gird your loins for the first drive of the game, big third down. Brady targets him. He doinks it off his hands, and he never sees another target the whole rest of the game.
Johnson style.
I love that playoff Lenny has been like 10 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown for a guy that went like 4 overall has been like the high point of his career for playoff Lenny. That yes, he's turned into a moderately okay NFL back, and playoff Lenny is here. So and
we've beaten this point into the ground. But for the love of God, Tampa Bay has Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Gronkowski, Brait, Scotty Mitchell, Antonio Brown, all on the field. And you're putting the ball in playoff Lenny's hands 20 freaking times a game? What are you doing? What are you doing?
It was all just a setup. They're gonna just he's
healthy scratch.
Healthy scratch. Be like, we're just kidding. We're not really gonna use him. It's like fighting a bunch of guys left-handed and then getting to the championship. Be like, I'm not even left-handed.
I like it. All right. Well, Uncle Kanish, thank you so much for your time. This was as fun as I'd hoped. And best of luck to you as you look to collect on all of the various outs that you're going to win money from this weekend. And I hope may your accounts stay open, and may the off season treat you well. Seen any draft props yet?
I was going to say, outside of just number 1, which is, now minus like 5,000 at most places. That's the only one I've seen so far, but we'll have to do it again as we get a little close. It's going to be no combine though was devastating. I was shocked. Like I'm shocked they're not having it play. So that was a little bit of a blow, going to make it a little tougher, but
I'm fine with it. Honestly, I'm still just so jilted from I had under 6 foot or whatever for Kyler Murray. Like of all the bad beats, like just look at the Heisman picture. He's 5'6".
He put on the stilettos with the extra, and his agent told him a couple of Dr. Scholl's in there, and like, hey, 6'1".
Oh, he's 6'1".
Yeah, I think it was. It might even have been like 5'10". Like, is he over or under 5'10"? And whatever it came out to, and I'm like, I can't believe I sat on this bet for a month.
I saw Betting Pod was tweeting out polls that looked like draft props, so he might have seen them somewhere. Betfair or something. Maybe I can't imagine. I'm not sure where, but the fact that he was tweeting about them and they looked like good kind of. It wasn't just nonsense engagement. It looks like, oh no, those actually are kind of good numbers. Like Penny Sewell, like over under 5.5, right? Or who's second quarterback taken? They looked like legit markets. So they're coming. They're coming. But it is going to be tough without the combine because the mock drafts are probably gonna be pretty bad this year. They're probably gonna be pretty bad. All right. Well, best of luck this weekend. Best of luck going forward. Thank you again for your time, and enjoy the Super Bowl. We will be live for halftime. We will do a halftime show. I will be wearing my Andy Reid inspired Hawaiian shirt, pulling for my Chiefs and my Mahomes tickets to come through, and then off we ride into the off season. So
I have a few Hawaiian shirts. I'll put one on too.
Oh yeah, nice. You're not going to go Kangol hat for Bruce Arians? You don't want to do a little?
I feel like I need to see the Kangol hat. I don't know where you can get one in a pinch, but
I would be lying if I said I don't have one. I actually have a white one I bought for a golf tournament once.
I like this. I like it. All right. Well, best of luck, guys, and we will catch you as we get closer to the draft, I'm sure. Nice job. Oh, bounced. He must have had something to do. We kept him for a whole hour.
We did keep him for a while. He's probably in trouble. You know what he has to go do?
Oh yeah.
Push-ups.
Feet. Oh, push-ups. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm getting my butt beat in the NBA tonight. Not a good one.
What's that?
Getting my ass kicked in the NBA tonight. I didn't have a great feeling.
Yeah, Tulane's down by like 100 too.